What's going on, everyone? About 52% of stocks in the S&P 500 finished in the red today, and the market was all over the place. The big man, Jerome Powell, got his speech out of the way, which is a good thing, so now we could focus on all of the movement and opportunities throughout the rest of the week. But before we get into that, we have to talk deeper about what actually happened in the market today and what caused this giant uptrend and then downtrend that, ended in a couple hours. So the market is at a crucial level right now. SPY is right at that $500 support, and things are about to get pretty interesting pretty quickly. So let's jump right into it, Tom.
Yeah, the overall market was pretty wild today. As we can see, there was just a lot of chop and I would say nothingness into the Powell event or the FOMC event, whatever you want to call it, right? We had the interest rate decision come out, and guess what? They paused interest rates. Is that a surprise to anybody? It better not be, because they had like a 99% chance of doing that. We also kept talking about that a lot, but Jerome Powell really dictated a lot of the price action as well as that interest rate decision. So like it says here, they pretty much ruled out rate hikes right now. There was a lot of talk about that there. Obviously said it's unlikely that their next move will be a hike. Now they could keep pausing, obviously, and I think that that's what they're going to do, but they're definitely not looking at hikes. At the same time, they're not really looking at cuts either. So it's weird, Mike. They're still walking that middle ground. They're saying that they're going to continue to look at the data. Powell downplayed stagflation, said that we're not in stagflation right now. It was kind of funny. He made a funny comment. People were laughing. He's like, I don't see the stag or the flation, he said. But it was pretty funny. At the end of the day, though, they paused, and they're just really slow playing everything. They want to see what the data looks like in the future, and they're not really getting close to their 2% inflation goal yet. So they don't really want to start cutting yet because they're not quite done fighting inflation. So that's really the story at the end of the day, Mike. And that's really what caused that big run up. And then even the subsequent move down, I feel like was just like the lack of bullishness there, because the market was going up a lot while Powell was talking initially. And once he stopped, the market really started turning back over there.
No doubt. And when you just zoom out really quickly, you can see that the market in the grand scheme of things is still pretty close to its highs. And by looking at the current CME interest rate pricing tool, you can see that the Federal Reserve is not expected to cut interest rates until November. So it's like, Jerome Powell and the rest of the members of the Fed right now are in a position where, like you said, they're just slow playing everyone. And that's kind of the smartest move to make right now. It's too early to cut rates because the war against inflation has not been won yet. And Jerome Powell straight up said today that, we're not going to cut rates until we have greater confidence that inflation is under control. So I think that says everything that needs to be said in terms of interest rate hikes and cuts going forward. But one thing I do want to touch on really quickly is that the market tried to run up today, but it just couldn't hold. So that does worry me a little bit going forward because, Jerome Powell has his way with words, and, even Powell can make the market close on like a strong in a strong green way, if that makes sense. So it's not like the market is, super bearish right now, but it's certainly not super bullish either. If this same meeting happened, a couple months ago, the market would be pretty green today, but the market has shifted, right? Markets are always changing, and it's just worth observing because, again, the market did end up closing in the red today, even after the giant initial uptrend. So just keep that in mind going forward because buyers clearly weren't that strong today.
Yeah, they really weren't. And there was a lot of good bullishness on that initial breakout. Like whenever 502 broke, whenever Powell first started speaking, it was awesome. The uptrend was great. I know a lot of people did awesome with it, and congrats to you guys who ended up doing very well, but it ran into resistance. There's a big resistance around 508. There's also a big trend line from overhead that it got very close to touching today before dipping down as well. So it just ended up rejecting there, and the sellers ended up coming right back in. So for the next couple days, Mike, everybody's going to have to keep their eyes on these big supports coming up, and SPY's sitting right at $500. I don't think it gets much more crucial than that, Mike, or much more of a bigger psychological level either. Like $500, if this starts to sell off below here tomorrow or over the next couple days, I'm definitely going to look at more downside pressure, especially whenever we saw chip stocks still looking rough today, like SMCI, Meta, and others that we're still, pretty down for the in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, Meta is green here a little bit, but whenever you go across the market, like Nvidia, AMD, like a lot of these chip stocks were down today.
Yeah, look at the heat map. Like the chip stocks took quite the hit. And a couple other stocks like Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft did all right, but nothing too crazy. But one stock that just got absolutely shredded today was Starbucks. So this thing fell by like 15% as their earnings were just pretty nasty, and they actually saw their revenue decline on a quarterly basis for the first time since, basically the entire world shut down during the COVID crash of 2020. So clearly that's not the best news for Starbucks, and it's just a stock worth keeping on close watch in the short term, because how often do we hear a company like Starbucks down 15% in a day?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I would say this is actually starting to show that there's some pressure on consumers right now. With Starbucks not having good profits, I'm sure that they are a little bit worried right now about people starting to save money and etc. I know McDonald's had a pretty bad earnings report too the other day. They ended up moving up from that initial drop, but still not the best move overall. That move with Starbucks, Mike, is terrible, down 15%. And if you go out to a daily chart, it looks pretty rough, right? There's a big support coming up around 70 that's going to be in focus, but it's always bad when you see a company like Starbucks where the average move down is only 0.89% and it goes down 15% on earnings. There's definitely a lot of concern here.
No doubt. And with Starbucks in the short term, there will be opportunities if we continue to see like this severe, we'll call lack of bullishness, to like scalp it in the short term. But if it continues to fall even more, I would consider buying the dip on this one, but it has to fall a lot more. So it'll be on my watch list, but I'm not too eager to jump in just yet. If it falls down to that like 67 to, you could say like $67 area, I'll consider, looking into the fundamentals more, but we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty big fan of Starbucks for the long term. Like you said, it's just really getting that entry, getting the correct entry on it, right? Like you still don't want to get in too high. And honestly, it just started falling. So it might still have like a lot of chop or downside moves still left in the tank here. But Mike, I know that Starbucks had a crazy move with earnings. And tomorrow we're going to have some even crazier earnings tomorrow night. So of course, one of the craziest stocks out there is Apple, right? Everyone's going to be watching that one in the short term tomorrow night. But for me, the big one is going to be DraftKings. It's one of our favorites, Mike. We've talked about it for a long time. And then we even have Coinbase and Square or Block tomorrow night too. So we have quite the lineup tomorrow night. I know tonight Qualcomm was like the only main one to watch. It wasn't as exciting as yesterday, but tomorrow we're going to have to really be careful in after hours because there could be some pretty big swings coming.
No doubt. So keep a close eye on Apple, Coinbase, and DraftKings. All of these stocks have a lot of potential to move in after hours. And Apple, as we all know, is one of the heaviest weighted stocks in the entire S&P 500. So when it moves, it has a direct influence on the market in a pretty strong way, let alone the effect it has on sentiment. So be ready for that. But one other thing I wanted to talk about that you probably won't hear from most other stock market sources is there was some pretty big news today that happened with the Treasury, where basically they announced this new buyback program, which is the first one since 2002. To keep this nice and simple, basically the Treasury is going to be adding some liquidity into the system, and this does have like a easing effect on the market, so it's nothing like completely game-changing, but I definitely did want to bring this up because it is a very important event, and it definitely does help the market, and it definitely does not get anywhere near the level of hype that other news articles will get, but I want to make sure everyone stays informed, so just keep in mind, the Treasury is, I don't want to say pumping the market, but they're definitely adding liquidity back into the system, and that does help. But at the same time, it's nowhere near the same level of, I guess you could say, quote-unquote, money printing activity that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's not like he's really opening up the printers yet, but hopefully it does have a nice easing effect. At the end of the day, Mike, I think we'll need to see a little bit more for that, but let's see how that ends up affecting the market over the next couple days and couple of months. And it was very interesting, just everything that went on with the Federal Reserve today, Mike. All eyes are on this, and it's definitely going to have a big effect on the market. That $500 support in the short term is definitely going to be on my radar. radar. And I was actually surprised, Mike, that the market didn't move more this morning from this buyback news. Like, I was actually expecting more of a move, but then again, a lot of people might not understand it.
Yep. Alrighty. So while the Powell events are out of the way, we do have a couple other exciting things on the economic schedule for the week. So we're all clear for tomorrow, but for Friday, we do have non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate set to release 1 hour before the market opens. So be ready for that. And then there is some ISM services data at 10 a.m. on Friday, so 30 minutes after open. But besides those few events, we are all in the clear just for some good old price action. So with that being said, let's jump right into some setups and predictions for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching pretty closely is SMH, and again, it is to the downside. We talked about this one in yesterday's video, and it had a great move lower today. I'm going to continue to watch this one in a bearish way, especially as, some of these chip stocks are starting to sell off a little bit. SMCI took quite the hit on earnings, and, this industry has just been, relatively weak. It's definitely not crashing by any means, but it's hard to disagree with the statement that chip stocks have been pretty weak lately. So SMH is on my radar to the downside.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not quite to the point of crashing yet, but like when you go to like SMCI on like a daily chart, Mike, I mean, it's getting close. Like if we start to have a good break under like 680, it's going to be pushing that territory, right? It's definitely getting close. So I'll definitely keep SMH on the radar for tomorrow. With my next play, I'm looking at NIO to the upside, and the China stocks have been doing very good, and NIO had a really good close today. It was up 11.6%, closed up pretty well. There's a good double top. If it ends up breaking above like 545 tomorrow, I will look at continued bullishness, and NIO's just doing really well off these recent lows, as are a lot of China stocks. So let's keep seeing these short-term continuations. I would love to see them come up to test $5.80 to $6.
Sounds good. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely right now is Netflix, and this one has been close on my radar for a couple days now, or honestly even just a couple weeks. It had that bad reaction to earnings on April 18th, and since that point it has been lingering right around this like $555 level. There is some pretty big support right around like $545 a share, and even all the way down to like $542 a share. If we see breaks below those levels, this can get nasty pretty quickly, especially if the market is falling alongside with it. So I am looking at Netflix in a bearish way, but I want to see some more weakness come in first. But I just wanted to share this one ahead of time as it's getting closer and closer to that support level.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it could break under there any given day now with how close it is still at this point. So I'll definitely have that on the radar. I'll tell you what, Mike, I'm actually going to set an alert up down there because that's how awesome that support is looking in the short term. And talking about big supports, my next play is SMCI. I know we talked about this one already a little bit, but it's at a key $700 support. I really like this level in the short term. If it starts to break under there, I will definitely look at more puts to the downside tomorrow. And we can go look at this on the book map and see a lot of buyers stacked up there. And if those buyers do get wiped out, I think that this stock could end up selling off a lot more tomorrow morning. There was a few bounces around there today and ended up holding very strong. So I'll definitely be watching that level for a solid break. And it's just another big psychological level. I feel like there's been a lot of stocks breaking these lately.
No doubt, and good eye there, but let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Zoom to the upside.
Yeah, Zoom is zooming a little bit here. Go ahead and make it break above 62.40 for calls.
All right. With the next one, we have Pfizer to the upside.
PFE. Yeah, this one's looking pretty good. Go ahead and make it break above its high of day right around 27.45.
Yeah, and this one had a great day, up 6%, which you don't see too often with a slow-moving, boring company like Pfizer. But good stuff there. And then with the last one, we have TLT for both directions.
Yeah, TLT. This one went pretty wild today, Mike. Got pretty crazy when Powell was speaking. Kind of followed the SPY, ran up and ran back down. If it ends up moving under $88 tomorrow, then go ahead and look at puts. But if it can recover back above $88.75, then go ahead and look at calls.
Sounds great. So we have the upside level for calls, and we have the downside level for puts with TLT. Don't forget about the upside level for Pfizer, and then the upside level for Zoom. These three stocks are on close watch tomorrow if and only if they break through the levels Tom listed. We want to see strong, consistent pressure with these stocks and then continuations in the directions listed. So keep them close on watch, and let's jump right into today's $675,000 big money trade of the day. And Tom, we're going back to the cannabis stocks from yesterday's video. So for those of you who don't know, basically there was some good outlooks and good news with cannabis stocks yesterday, as it looks like marijuana will be reclassified, but nothing is guaranteed yet. But either way, these stocks have been running up in a pretty big way, and it's an election year too, so that kind of adds some more spice to this industry. But either way, looking at MSOS, the big money put just under $700,000 into the MSOS call options, and this is going to sound a little bit complicated at first, but basically they bought the 11 strike calls and they shorted the 14 strike calls, both of which expire on June 21st of 2024. This is a call debit spread. Long story short, it's a bullish trade where the fund wants MSOS to go up. The higher it goes, the more they'll make. $14 is where the maximum profit level is. But if you want to keep your life nice and simple, and you don't want to have to deal with a call debit spread, you can simply trade the MSOS 11 strike calls for June 21st of 2024, and it'll be a very similar trade. But basically, this is a bullish trade on the marijuana industry, and I can't necessarily blame the big money here, especially after they're getting in on this dip and the big news from yesterday.
Yeah, I really don't blame him either. And I know that marijuana right now seems pretty risky. These are pretty wild stocks, right? So at the end of the day, I would never over leverage on these. Like, you shouldn't do that on any trade, but with how wild these are, I would definitely keep it light. But I do really like MSOS to the upside here in the short term. And I think that a lot of these stocks like CGC and Tilray that pulled back today, they still have potential to go up. Sometimes following these huge green days like this, there's been red days before continuations before. We've seen it happen multiple times in the past, so I don't think that the uptrend's necessarily over yet, and I'm definitely going to keep watching supports. Like CGC is down around the $10 support. That's a pretty major spot. It started forming end of day today, and of course MSOS is starting to get towards support as well. They just broke under 10, but more major support around $9 and $8. But I do like the setup, Mike. Marijuana stocks are starting to pop off. And this one is actually not too far out. It's only a couple months, right? So don't it's going to be more of a short-term play, right? You're not going to have to hold this into the end of the year or anything like that. So just keep the position light if you do decide to play it. Like Mike said, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
You know it. But looking at the market right now, we are at a very interesting point. Again, the Powell event is out of the way. SPY is back to that crucial $500 level, and it's pretty obvious to say that the market is a lot different right now than what it was like a couple months ago. It is so important to be able to adapt, and no matter what, in any situation, make sure you are deploying healthy, long-term, sustainable trading habits. That's the name of the game. Make sure you respect your stop losses and have them before you enter any trade. Make sure your position sizing is reasonable, and of course, try not to fight the trend, right? Don't fight the flows, don't fight the money. You want to follow it, right? Use it to your benefit. But looking at the market right now, we're at a very interesting point. We haven't seen chip stocks move in the way they are in quite a while as well. So I'm pretty excited for the rest of the week, and I think it should be a good one, Tom.
It really should. These chip stocks are going wild. Just continue to watch these supports. If the market breaks down tomorrow, we'll just have to look at a breakdown below support. I know it started running up when Powell spoke today, and a lot of people got discouraged when it pulled back. So don't be too discouraged in tomorrow. Just keep that adaptability. Let's keep going. Don't forget about the big earnings tomorrow night either, with Apple, Coinbase, Block, and DraftKings. Those are going to be pretty big coming up, especially Apple. So just keep that on the radar. But other than that, Mike, just keep it nice and simple tomorrow, guys. There's a big support in play. If that gives out, there could be some good momentum down. And, you could maybe put a stop loss around like 501, 502 if we do get the breakdown. But, of course, just keep those stops there in case there's a fake.
No doubt. And let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Aaron107. Huge shout out to Aaron. He's been a great member of the community for a couple weeks now, and he's been asking some phenomenal questions. And he also had a great day with GLD as well. So huge shout out to you, Aaron. Keep working hard and keep asking those great questions. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, consider demolishing that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. In every single video, we cover important things to know, big earnings, key levels, big money trades, and just everything you need to know in normally like 20 to 25 minutes or less. If you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. But besides that, let's end this week on a green note.